and welcome to another episode of the work.knits podcast. My name is Lauren and I'm coming to you from England in the United Kingdom, and it is the last weekend of August. Wow. Here in the UK we have a bank holiday, or like a public holiday, tomorrow on Monday, so it's a nice long weekend. But for those of you who don't have the luxury of a public holiday tomorrow, I really hope you've had a lovely weekend so far, and hopefully you can curl up with a cup of tea or something nice to drink and watch this as a lovely end to your weekend. Fingers crossed. I'm coming to you kind of 2 weeks out from my last video. I put a little note up on Instagram to let you know that I wasn't going to be publishing one last weekend. If you want a heads up on when I am or am not posting, Instagram's quite a helpful place. You can find me at work.knits, and I will have that somewhere on the screen. I think going forwards from here it's going to be a kind of fortnightly podcast. I think that's probably going to be the best format for everyone. It's going to hopefully mean that I have more content for you. I've been doing weekly for the last month or two, just whilst there's been a lot of movements going on in my life, and where there'd be potential for me to miss a week, that kind of kept things more regular. But now I think we're getting back into the flow of things coming into the autumn, so I'm really excited. Today I've got lots to show you, so I'm really looking forward to delving into some of these projects, talking to you about kind of some of the design choices I've made, and everything that I've been knitting on in the last few weeks. Yeah, I've been really looking forward to this one. I've got a cup of coffee with me. I hope you've got something nice. I'm going to take a sip and then I will dive straight into what I am wearing. So, those of you who watched the last episode will know that this is a very long-term whip, which is now finished. I'm so excited. I have already worn this in the last 2 weeks. It was actually ready for last weekend. I sat down and started recording an episode and just thought, nope, but this is one of the things I've been racing to get done. So if I just stand up, I've got this on with a nice little silk cami top and a pair of jeans. And it's exactly what I wanted. So it's a open front, it's got no buttonholes or buttons on it. It's a round yoked cardigan. It's quite cropped, but it sits right on the top of my jeans. And yeah, backstory to this, I cast this on in 2020 during the pandemic. And what happened? Well, I knit one of the sleeves, but I knit it quite short, quite cropped, and very straight, so it had very little shaping, and that was kind of right at the time when that was quite the thing in the knitting community. But I was finding there was a lot of my jumpers that I just wasn't getting as much wear out of because the crop sleeve just wasn't quite working for me. So I parked it for a bit, and then I picked it up literally 2 to 3 weeks ago, and I knit the second sleeve and then I re-knit the first sleeve as well. So yeah, it was really just nice to bring this out of a languishing whip and get it done, and now I am really enjoying it, which is great. This is not my first cardigan, but it is the only cardigan I now have, because the other cardigan I knit was the balloon cardigan by Petite Knit. I knit that up in Isager Highland wool in the shade Curry with some Gepard Garn Golden Mohair around the same time, actually probably in 2020, and just the fabric it made and the fit of the cardigan just did not suit me, so I frogged that. I've still got some of the yarn left over, and the rest of it I used to make a little sleeveless vest slipover thing. So anyway, so this is my only cardigan. It is also my first steeked project. So this cardigan was knit in the round, and then I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but I cut my knitting. I did a crochet reinforcement, which I actually, when I think about it, I don't actually think really reinforces it that much, if I'm honest. But I was using a nice sticky yarn. I've used Holst yarn for this, so it's just stayed nicely. I've just whip stitched that down. In certain lights you can kind of see a bit of a bump on this side, less so on this side, where I have sewn that in place on the inside. So as I mentioned, I used Holst yarn. The main colour, the blue, is the shade Mariner, and the contrast colours up here, the lighter colour is Gold Crest and the darker colour is Ember. I knit this using the Strange Brew recipe book from Tin Can Knits, and I basically made up my own colourwork motif but used all the kind of shaping and instructions from that book. They also talk you through how to steek, so that's really helpful. And yeah, I think the only thing to mention is I used 3.75mm needles for the main body, and then all the ribbing is done in 3mm. So really frustratingly, when I'd done the last sleeve, when I'd done the first sleeve in the way that I now wanted it, which is kind of lot longer and with a kind of quite a tailored fit, I did the ribbing in the 3.75mm needles, and I had to undo that and re-knit the rib, which was a little bit frustrating, but hey, that's just the way it went. So this is my first finished object. I think I'm going to get so much wear out of this. It's so good for these kind of transitional seasons and where the weather's like not quite summer, not quite like bare shoulders, short sleeves, whatever, but it's also not full-on jumper weather. This has been perfect. So I'm loving it. Really, really loving it. Could not be happier. So that's my first finished object. I technically have 3 more, so 4 total. Who am I? One of them though is on blocking mats just over the other side of me, and I do think I'm actually going to have to purchase another ball of yarn and add some more length to it. I keep knitting stuff too short at the moment. Combination of either not having enough yarn or I want quite cropped, but I'm overestimating how cropped I want things. Anyway, we'll get there on that one. For reference, for longer term viewers, oh, got something in my eye. For longer term viewers, the project that I'm looking at over here is the capped sleeve blue and gold striped t-shirt that was based loosely off the Pieces of Silver sweater by Vera Valimaki. And I knit that up in Lang yarns, striped with Madeline Tosh yarns and Ico silk thread. Anyway, really excited to show you that one. As I say, technically I've got 4 finished objects. That one's still blocking, and I just thought I'd jump on the podcast anyway. I've got enough to talk to you about without that. So the next finished object I'm going to come to was again technically ready for last weekend, but if I had recorded, sorry I just dropped it, if I had recorded I would have been saying to you, but I need to go back and lengthen this. As I said, I've been overcropping everything. But now that I've waited another week to record, I can say it's finished. La la, da da da. This is, and it's already pilling, wow. This is my Graerup Slipover by Camilla Vad. It is still also slightly damp from blocking. This flew off my needles, and then there was a bit of a pause just because I needed to go back in and lengthen it. But I did this in under a week. This is a gorgeous knit, really, really addictive. So I had cast this on, I think, from my last podcast episode, and I was talking to you about the fact that I modified how I knit this slightly. This is a bottom-up slipover, knit both flat and in the round. So I always find that, ironically, given I had to lengthen it, haha, I normally find that I really struggle to get the length right on bottom-up sweaters, and so I thought that doing a provisional cast on just under the sleeve split would be perfect, because I could knit the top half, try that on, and then if I knit the rest of it going down, I'd be able to try it on as I go. Did I do that? No, but nonetheless, the idea was there, and I think I'll definitely use that method again. I did a couple of modifications. I made the armhole very straight. I didn't do the shaping that brings it kind of nice and curved, which is in the pattern. Just for me, a straighter armhole on something this tight fitting works better. The pattern calls for, I think, between 0 and 5 inches of positive ease. I've actually got negative ease on this, probably by about less than an inch, but nonetheless, negative ease. And I knit this on 4mm needles. The yarn, the light coloured yarn here, is John Arbon Knit by Numbers DK, I think this one's called KBN48. The next colour is the next John Arbon colour in that colour fade. The tag with the colour on it is right in the middle of the ball, and I've still got quite a lot of the ball left, and I don't want to pull it out because it will just ruin the cake. But it's the next one in that fade. Gorgeous. And then the dark green is actually, given that the other two are DK, the dark green is actually a fingering weight yarn. This is Tuku wool fingering in the shade Havu. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, and I think a lovely viewer told me that Havu means something like pine tree or forest or something like that. And then I just finished it with a nice bit of long rib at the bottom. I added in this whole section of plain stockinette stitch is not in the pattern. I've added that on because my row gauge was massively off. My stitch gauge was off by about 3, I think, which makes a huge difference, which is why I've ended up with negative ease. But my row gauge, and I find this all the time, my row gauge is massively off compared to, in particular, continental knitters. So my row gauge, I think, was 6 rows off. So no wonder it came up very short. It was kind of up to here, so I've added on an extra bit to go down to my waist. My future mother-in-law actually really loves the colours, and she is a very petite woman, and I think this would fit her beautifully, but we'll just see if it is her kind of thing or if she just more liked it to look at, if you know what I mean. Bit of a difference as to what we'll wear versus what we just enjoy viewing. But yeah, really enjoyed this. Would love to knit a few more slipovers. I think they're a really versatile piece in the wardrobe. I know traditionally people have always thought of them as maybe a bit dated, but they're definitely having a comeback. And I really enjoyed this one. So that's my second finished object, very happy. And then my third finished object is my collar. So guys, so much to say about this. This is going to be a pattern. I need to write this pattern up this week. I was going to do it last week, I didn't. I need to. I knit another version of this, and I don't know where it is currently. It's somewhere in all our packed up moving boxes, etc. I'm not worried, it will be somewhere, but I knit an original version in Kate Davies Designs Aired Tier in the colourway Glameg, which is a beautiful kind of cognac colour. And when I knit that one, I was kind of making it up as I went along. For those who've watched the other episodes of the podcast, you'll know that was a bit of a process. The actual collar is so quick to knit. We're talking like 3 evenings worth of knitting if you have like 2 hours an evening. I know that's not what everyone has, but I'm just trying to give you a bit of a benchmark. So it's a super quick knit. It's just, for me, it's taken slightly longer because I'm trying to design it as I go. And my original version, you went straight into knitting the cables as you were constructing a saddle shoulder. And then you needed to switch the cables from working in the round to flat. And in the process of doing all that, it was becoming very complicated. So for this version, I have simplified things. So when you roll the collar down, which is the intention, it looks like the cables start pretty much straight away, but actually, if I bring the collar back up, you've got a whole section in stockinette. So you work, the saddle shoulder now is worked using short rows, which is super exciting. And then you start working all the cables at the point when you are knitting flat, so all the cable charts are all the same, if that is making any sense. We're not having to convert. And what else can I say about this? I knit this up using 1 ball of Rerum Natura Gilead in the colourway Caramel. 1 ball, 100 grams, is 250 metres, so a really nice and airy and lofty worsted weight yarn. I have to admit that by using 1 ball, you will not have enough left for a gauge swatch. So if you do want to, there's 2 ways you can do it. Either the stockinette portion is right at the beginning, you cast on underneath the collar, so you go straight into stockinette. So within maybe 3 or 4 rows, that's maybe a bit optimistic, within 5 rows you will know whether or not you're hitting the stitch count gauge. So if you're like me and you're impatient, you can just get started and see whether you hit gauge. The other option is the swatch will be knit flat anyway, so you could knit your swatch but just not cut your yarn and not block it, and then you can just unravel it. This did not grow very much with blocking. The only thing that blocking did change was the kind of tabardy part of the collar, this bit. With all the cables it kind of does this initially, and then when you block it, it sits nice and square. So that's kind of the only change from blocking if you're using the same yarn as me. The other thing I'd say is, so yeah, quick knit, 1 ball. When you put it on, which I'm going to do, I'm going to get a bit warm wearing double knitwear, but let's give it a go. And I'm going to end up with very frizzy hair. Yep, there we go. Classic. Okay, when you put it on like this, it sits very high on your shoulders, and this bit kind of all gathers up and doesn't look that attractive if you have it up like this. The idea is that you turn the collar down, and where you pick up the collar into the cast on edge, you get quite a crisp line at the top. And when you do that, it sits nice and wide from your neck, because the idea is that you might want a bit of breathing space around your neck. This is not meant to be like super tight, super cozy. Well, it's cozy, but it's meant to give you a bit of breathing space. You could put a cowl in here, you could put a scarf in here, you could make it closer fitting, you could go down a needle size for the rib and really bring it all in. You could make a bigger collar than I have. Completely up to you. You could add a very fine mohair in just for the collar if that would be kind of to your liking. But yes, I have currently made this design in one size when I write up the pattern. However, before people get upset, I will write into the pattern a few options if you want to make it broader across the shoulders, and that's if you've either got broader shoulders than I have, or if you've got coats where the neckline is going to be wider and you need that extra coverage so that you haven't got kind of a gap down the side of your collar. I will write that into the pattern, but essentially you will have options to just repeat charts, and I will explain how you do the kind of shoulder construction to make all of that work. But the kind of that will be more like instructions for modifications as opposed to written out full instructions, if that makes any sense. But hopefully quite easy to modify. Or yeah, quite easy to adapt, I think it's a better word. Right, that is my second finished object. Very pleased to have done that. Not second, third finished object. Blimey. Just not used to having more than one, that's the problem. So, as you can tell, it's been quite a productive couple of weeks, and it's felt very good to just get lots of things off my needles. God, I hate drinking coffee on the podcast because I feel like I get it around my mouth. So elegant. Yes, it's been a very productive few weeks, and it's been really good to get some long-term whips off the needles. I've basically been trying to have like a whip down. Like as in really cut those number of whips down, get some of those old ones really... there's one kind of, well, not one exception, but I guess like quite hopefully helpful for long-term viewers. So I have just made an agreement with myself that there are 3 whips that I am just going to park until probably September, October, or at least when the weather gets a bit cooler here in the UK. Those 3 whips are my Doodle Tresco sweater, which is just up here, my steeked one in Wool Dreamers Mantelope, which is up in that grey bucket there, and then my Keren wrap. All of those happen to be knit on 3.5mm needles, and they're all very dense gauges. I'm using either a DK or thicker yarn on 3.5mm needles, and they're doing my wrists in, and they're too warm to be knitting on right now. So I'm not counting those as active live whips for the moment. I'm parking them. And that's made me feel a lot better because I don't feel like I've got gazillions of whips on the go then. So, yes. With that in mind, let's turn to whips, because there's the blue and gold stripy t-shirt that, as I said, is kind of finished object. Might feature as a finished object in the next episode, depending on whether I've lengthened it yet or not. But that's had progress on it. I've also made progress on some of my other long-term whips. So, woo! Dropped stuff on the floor already. Okay, we're just gonna have to go with it. The Grink Wrap has come back out. Grink Wrap being a bit of a nickname. This is a doodled, self-drafted intarsia wrap where I'm just playing with colour. And I've made so much progress, guys, and I've just introduced my 3rd pink, so to speak. Okay, so I think last time we spoke we were probably like down here. So I've put it in a good like foot or more. So ignore this grey bit at the bottom for the moment, we'll come back to that. But for the main body, I'm holding one strand of Knoll yarns, lambswool, super fine. It's not even lace weight, it's finer than that, it's like cobweb, in the shade Almond, with 3 different colours of mohair. So the lightest is a kind of very pale pink / ecru mohair from Isager. Then the middle pink is Gullrock Fibres Rose Gold. It's hand dyed, and it's stunning. The core has got this gorgeous golden shade to it, and then the fluff is pink, and it's just so scrummy. And then this last shade that I'm coming into is Schulana colour 210, and it's kind of like a very poppy cranberry colour. I'm just noticing I've dropped a loop of mohair. That's super annoying. Oh well, we'll come back to that. And I'm just making up the intarsia as I go along. Different blocks. And now I'm fading into the 3rd colour, so it'll be the Gullrock Fibres and then this colour. And then I will keep knitting and knitting and knitting, and all I'm doing is changing the colour of the mohair, and then I'm going to go back and put a dark grey border around it. This border is knit in 2 strands of Knoll yarns, that cobweb like lambswool. That's 2 strands there in my hand. This is the shade Oxford, and I'm going to go around and I'm probably going to make that at least double that height. And I'm going to do that the whole way around, and then I'm going to apply an I-cord edging in the same colour. So that's the plan. But this is just not very portable. Like, as you can tell, the minute I pulled this onto my lap, I dropped a ball on the floor. It's not very portable, and doing the twisting of the colours for the intarsia is, I find A, adds quite a lot of weight to your needles, and B, it's quite hard to do on the go, and I do a lot of my knitting on the train. So yeah, that's why this has been quite slow, but I really love the project. It gives me a lot of joy. But yeah, you can't even see half the design. I think when you block it, this is going to be, because there's a whole nother, there you go, another bit over here that you can't see. Yeah, anyway, but progress on this, so I'm very happy. Right, to my horror, I'm going to have to just dump that on the floor because half the balls have fallen out. Done. Another whip that I'm sure you guys are like, come on Lauren, why haven't you finished this yet, is my Recollect Cowl by Jennifer Steingass, aka Knit.Love.Wool. This is definitely a product knit for me. This is nothing against Jen's pattern. This is just my preference as a knitter. I have made some progress. I've made probably about 3 to 4 inches of progress. Okay, this is going to be an unpopular opinion, and I really don't like using this word, but I've got to be honest, I have hated the process. The chart is very memorisable, but I just don't like doing colour work that switches between garter and stockinette. That's just... And I kind of knew that when I started it, but I just desperately wanted the project. It's blowing out a bit on camera, particularly this pinky colour here is blowing out on camera. That's really not how it looks. Think more rhubarb mixed with rose. But I think I will love the finished object. Let's see if that's better. Almost, that's better-ish. So to go through in detail, the colours are, the pink is Rosa Pomar Pegulhal in colour 2. Then it goes into, you can barely see it, but the garter stitches here are Riverknits in like a marmalade colour. This white is Suri Alpaca Rosa Pomar Apresenta. Then it goes back into Pegulhal. This reddy colour is Beetroot by Lychen Lace. And then the other colour that's introduced is this one. This is Knitting for Olive Merino in the colourway Dark Ochre. I'll get there. Basically you just knit a tube and then you fix the ends together. So I think I'll only do a single loop, and yeah, I'll just keep plugging away, but definitely not my favourite knitting process, but a lovely product. Like, I will really love the finished cowl. It will look stunning, but not the process I would normally choose, I don't think. Right, what else have I got in terms of whips? Let's have another sip of coffee, and then I think I'll come on to a swatch. Woohoo! So, in my last episode, I chatted to you guys, excuse me, under the acquisition section, I chatted to you guys about the Knitting for Olive Merino in the colourway Bottle Green, and I was asking some questions about how that compared to Slate Green. There's bits of Suri Alpaca in the air. How that compared to Slate Green, because this, I'm trying to knit some dark foresty greeny coloured sweaters for my bridesmaids for my wedding that is in less than 3 months' time. And I've been looking at the Knitting for Olive Merino because they've got such a vast array of colours, and they had kind of one of the best dark greens, but on the Knitting for Olive website, slate green looks like their darkest green and bottle green looks a bit lighter. And then on other people's websites, bottle green is their darkest green, but it still isn't quite as dark as the slate green colour on the Knitting for Olive website. All a bit confusing. Anyway, some lovely viewers commented saying, trust the websites of the yarn shops because they've always been pretty true to colour, and other people did think that bottle green was probably the darkest. So I've done a swatch. Now don't be alarmed because the swatch is going to look really weird because I've used a scrap of mohair that is totally not the right colour. So this is not how the sweater will look, but I just wanted to check the fabric. So it will not have white, it will be dark green as well for the mohair. So the sweater I'm swatching for is the George's sweater by Joanna Kolberich, I think. Oh no, I'm not, I haven't got that right. She's Joanna Calibri or something on Instagram. Anyway, if you type in the George's with an S on the end sweater into Ravelry, it will come up with the right sweater. It's a raglan front, very simple, then with a beautiful tied back. So I swatched on 5mm needles, which is what the pattern calls for. That's the top part of this swatch, and then I moved on to 6.5mm needles for the bottom. This pattern is worked at a gauge of 15 stitches. My goodness, I cannot get 15 stitches. This top part is off by about 3 or 4. I think I'm on like 18 stitches with a 5mm needle and a 6.5mm needle, so quite a lot above what I should be using in theory. I'm still at like 16 stitches, so I'm a stitch out, and I'm so reluctant to go to a 7mm needle because I just don't like the fabric it's creating. It just feels really overly stretchy. It just doesn't feel like it's got enough body, whereas the 5mm needle is still at the kind of looser end of my normal gauge spectrum, but it just feels a bit more substantial. So I'm thinking I might knit the sweater at 5mm needles, and then I'm gonna have to do some maths to make sure that I knit the right size for the girls, because I just think I prefer that fabric, and particularly if the back's tied, I want the fabric to have enough substance that like it's not just gonna bag out of shape immediately. So yeah, that's my thinking. So I need to order the yarn. It's going to be a bit of a gulp because it's going to be a bit expensive, but I think it's the right choice. I think it's going to be really, really good. So anyway, so I did that swatch, and I very rarely swatch, but I think for this there's so much money going into it and I really want it to be right. And I don't have masses of time to be fiddling around and re-knitting things. So I've got 2 sweaters to knit, so I want to get it right. So that's my swatch. So be very proud of me, people, because you know I never swatch. So that's something else I've got done. Right, more coffee. Sorry, this is so needed. I'm very sleepy today. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm just drowsy all the time. Right. The next whip begins to transition us into some acquisitions. Now, I know acquisitions aren't everyone's favourite, so I will talk about this project. I will nod to the fact that some of it was recently acquired yarn. I will then put a little break in this video to show you some footage from the Oxford Yarn Store, which is a beautiful yarn shop here in the UK. I took some little clips. I didn't get a chance to kind of film me talking everything through, but if I can, I'll kind of talk you through the different bits of footage if I can manage that. Let's see. And then I'll run through what I got from there. I will try and mention some admin-y stuff before. Sorry, I'm thinking on the go here, guys. Apologies. Let's just go with it. I'll try and mention all the giveaways and add like podcast admin stuff before switching to the yarn shop stuff, just so that if that's not your thing, you can end the video there knowing that you've covered all bases. So we'll do that. I'll make sure I've got all the core content out of the way before we go to acquisitions. So the next work in progress is in this very cute little bucket. And I am so behind the curve on this. So I am knitting a Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry. I have had the Shift shawl in my library for over a year. I started knitting a version of it, and another controversial opinion, I just didn't enjoy it. Really didn't enjoy it. I don't know if it was the yarn I was using or what, but I just didn't love it. I always thought, oh, I'll go back and knit another one. I think there's also part of me that's like, everyone's knit this, like, do I really want to knit one? Anyway, when I went to the yarn shop yesterday with my future mother-in-law and a family friend, the family friend knits, and we were just discussing knitting in the round, modern knitting patterns. It was such a great day because this individual's knit for years and years and years and years since they were a child. But they've always knitted on straight needles, and they've knitted from very different patterns to the ones that I use. So it was a real exchange of experiences. And in the shop, in the yarn store, they had a sample of the Shift Cowl by Andrea Mowry, knit up in 3 different colours from Crazy Zauberball from I always forget the name of the company, but anyway, the German company that make the Crazy Zauberballs. And yeah, she was just like, oh my gosh, I love that, I want to knit that. So she got a couple of different, she got like 2 sets of 3 balls, so she can knit 2 different versions. And we got the pattern on Ravelry, and I helped her cast on, and da 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 da. And then I thought, actually, I really want to make one. It was so addictive watching, like, you know, helping her and us working through the pattern together, and seeing hers develop. And I thought, yeah, I really want to cast that on. So yesterday, I cast one on. Haha. And the nice thing about this is I'm using some yarn that I bought yesterday, and I'm also using a really special skein that I was given as a Christmas present by my sister a few years ago, and that is a skein of oh god, how on earth am I forgetting this? You guys are going to be screaming at me. Spin Cycle. So I asked for a skein of Spin Cycle yarn as a Christmas present a few years ago. It's not normally a yarn I'd indulge in. And I really loved the colourway Absolute Zero, but as we all know with Spin Cycle yarns, one of the beauties is that they are made in small batches, and that there is quite a lot of colour variation even within a kind of colourway. So the slightly unfortunate thing was I had been drawn to this colour because of the pinks, and actually the one I've got is really not pink, it's blues and purples. Don't quite know how that happened, but anyway. So I've been really stuck because I really want to try the yarn, I really want to see how it knits up, but it's also really not in my wheelhouse. I'm not a purples person, and I'm not a kind of icy blue person. So I've been really struggling until I decided I was casting this on. I thought, well, actually this is the yarn that Andrea uses. Plus I bought a Crazy Zauberball in their DK weight merino, and that colourway has got loads of kind of greys and purples in, so I thought, well, that's going to go perfectly. This is colour 1523 or 2299, depends which one. This is all in German, so I cannot read German, unfortunately, to be able to tell you what it is I'm looking at. Anyway, sorry, I'm just reading the tag to see if anything else comes out. No. I think, is Farbe colour? Anybody who speaks German, can you let me know? Is Farbe colour or is Bestellnummer? Anyway, either 1523 or 2299. I've got 50 grams. This. I've got my Absolute Zero, which is 50 grams of a sport weight Spin Cycle yarn, and then the other yarn that I purchased that I am using is Peer Gynt by Sandnes Garn in the colour 1035, which is like a tweedy. I don't know if you can see the tweedy bits, but it's got purples and mustards. I just thought these would all go together so well. So anyway, in the space of one evening, that was my knitting. So I am actually really enjoying this one. I'm struggling to put it down. but you do have to, I'm finding I'm having to read the pattern a lot. It's not quite become intuitive yet. I think it's that the edges are not the same. That's what's getting me. I think if both edges, and I don't think this is ruining it, but it's got like a knit as you go I-cord on one side, and then the other side isn't an I-cord. It's still a lovely edge, but maybe I've got this wrong. Maybe I'm knitting it wrong. I don't know, but the other side doesn't to me look like an I-cord, and that's really confusing me. Yeah, I don't know if I'm knitting it wrong, but it's not coming out as an I-cord. It started off as an I-cord down here, and then it's just not. I don't know. So anyway, that is what I've been doing. That is my next whip. So I'm excited to cast that kind of thing on. I was also this morning planning on casting on my hat version of the From Farm to City shawl, but in hat version, and I did cast it on in the car whilst we were off to pop to a shop, but the needles I brought, the tips were too long for the cord, and so I couldn't actually get the needles to do the cabling. So that was annoying. And I've also got some more plans to cast on some more whips, so I think in the next episode you're just going to see a complete explosion of new whips, which is hopefully quite exciting now that I've got some of those longer term whips off the needles. So touching on From Farm to City, I think that's quite a nice lead into what's going on with my designs at the moment. I've got a test knit going, what you can expect over the next like month or so, because we're pretty much into September now. So I have my From Farm to City shawl test knit on the go. Thank you so much to my testers who are participating in that. Some amazing shawls coming out of it. I think it's also highlighted to me that I need to be so careful designing these things when I'm quite tired, because there are just some bits where I've just, I don't know, like I just had forgotten to put stitch counts into certain bits. I'd kind of given an instruction like, you know, for the pickup I'd said what kind of rate you were supposed to pick up at, but I hadn't given a set number of stitches that you should end up with, and it's just small things like that that I think are quite important, and they're really obvious when someone points them out to you, and I've done them in previous patterns, but for this one, it must have just been the headspace I was in. So anyway, Tess has been incredibly helpful pointing those kind of things out. So I think some of my testers will be done in the next week or so, and I think I've had most of the feedback back from them that I need in order to publish the pattern. So I just need to start kind of finalising the formatting, maybe take a few more pictures, and then the From Farm to City shawl should be out kind of second week of September, I think, first or second week. Probably not next week, let's be honest, but let's see, maybe it's bank holiday tomorrow, maybe I can work on it then. So that's that test knit. I will also now be launching a test knit for this collar. So I will be writing up the pattern probably tomorrow. So do let me know down in the comments if you'd like to get involved, although to be honest the best way to get involved is, excuse me, oh some fluff got in my throat. The best way to get involved is to head over to Instagram and to drop me an Instagram message with your email address, and I will then send you an email. It'd also be helpful to have your phone number, if you have WhatsApp in particular, because I might start a WhatsApp group. If there's enough people for this, it'd be quite nice to have a WhatsApp group going. And I'm very conscious that because I'm based in the UK, lots of people who've got involved in my test knit just now are from the US, and that means our time zones, sometimes it can be quite a few hours that I don't reply, or like when I reply that's not at a good time for other people in the test knit. So maybe having a WhatsApp group would mean that obviously whilst, you know, I am obviously the first port of call for questions, it just might be that other people can help each other out. So maybe that will work better, let's see. But I will launch a test knit for this week, so do head over to Instagram, work.knits, @work.knits, and drop me a message with your email and your mobile number if you have WhatsApp, if you'd like to get involved. If you could also let me know whether or not you have knit cables before, that would be really helpful. I should have asked ahead of my last test knit whether people had knit cables or not, because my pattern assumes you know how to knit cables. Whether that's right or wrong, different point, but that's the basis I've operated on. It's definitely not for beginners. That's not to say though that someone who is a beginner couldn't get the pattern and just research how to do cables. I think then it's a fairly easy cable pattern, but yeah, it assumes you know how to. So there we go. And then the final bits of admin before I turn to the yarn store and acquisitions would be to say we've still got our 2 giveaways running. I will pull a winner for our alternating episode giveaway today, and I will put their name down below in the description box. It will have a kind of subtitle saying pattern giveaway winner, and then it will have your YouTube handle. So please check the box below if you entered by commenting on the last episode and if you subscribe. So that is a giveaway we're running every other episode. I pull a winner from those who commented on the previous episode and who subscribe, and they get a choice of my pattern. So if you are the lucky winner this time, then please head over to my Ravelry store and please let me know which pattern you would like and your Ravelry name, and I will gift that to you. The other giveaway we've got is our 1000 subscriber giveaway. We've had lots of people subscribe since the last episode. Thank you so much. I still have over 60% of my viewers are not subscribers, and I completely get it because that was me for 10 years. So I really get it, but now I'm sat on the other side, so to speak. I am making a big effort on my personal account to subscribe to the podcasts that I love, because it really goes so far to help support them, and yeah. So I'm very grateful to those of you who comment, like, watch every single time. If you're not yet subscribed, please consider clicking subscribe. It would really help me out. We are about less than, I think, 250 subscribers away from hitting 1000 subscribers, and when we hit that number, I will pull a number of winners. The ways you can enter are as follows. You can share and promote my podcast to other knitty friends. You can do that via Instagram, email, WhatsApp, whatever you like, but you will need to take a screenshot of it just to make it fair, so that when if you are the winner, you can share that screenshot with me. As I say, it's a fairness point, just so that everyone's playing by the same rules, so to speak. So for that category of winner, there will be at least 2 winners pulled. The first winner will win a package that will include several skeins, 100-gram skeins, and some other little bits and pieces. The second draw in that category will probably be an equivalent of a sock set, and I will reach out to winners of any category to find out about their preferences in terms of colours, things that matter to them, whether it's who owns the business, whether it's how local businesses are, whether it's about natural dyeing and eco-friendliness, whatever it is that matters to you. I will find that out from you, and I will purchase prizes for the package that match your preferences. So I won't have any giveaway packages to be showing you ahead of time, because I won't purchase them until I know what the winner would like. So that's how that will work. And then the other way of entering is to, because I appreciate not everyone feels comfortable promoting a podcast to other people, so the other option is to subscribe to both my YouTube and my Instagram account. And I will pull at least 1 winner from there, if not 2, and there will be a prize size to be determined, but yeah, there'll be a prize of some sort for both of those winners too. So I hope that sounds exciting. I'm very excited. It's just so lovely how much this community is growing. Thank you so much to everyone who keeps commenting and coming along for more each time. Yeah, just brings me so much joy connecting with all of you. So speaking of joy, I'm going to transition into the yarn shop acquisition section of this podcast episode. If that's not your jam, have a lovely rest of week. I will see you in 2 weeks' time, and thank you so much for joining. For those of you who are sticking around, let's have a sip of coffee and I will show you some clips and photos from inside the yarn shop. say it's an absolutely gorgeous yarn shop. Really, really gorgeous. It's very bijou, very small, but wow, do they pack a lot in, and there is just floor to ceiling of yarn on most of the surfaces, most of the walls. I was quite overwhelmed actually walking in, just where to even start. So many beautiful things. The kind of key brands that they stock, and apologies if I'm missing any, but I think as an overview, they stock Sandnes Garn, Isager, or Isager, however you want to pronounce it. They stock Bird Street yarns, they stock Rowan, lots of Rowan yarns. They stock, there's definitely more, there's a couple of more like natural local yarn companies from the UK. I think they stock Chiltern Farm yarns, they stock British Raw Wool Company. Who else? They've got a little bit of Knitting for Olive. Yeah, oh, some West Yorkshire spinners. But they've got kind of, I'd say, they've got great depth in less brands. Does that make any sense? They've definitely gone for depth rather than breadth. Oh, Jameson & Smith is the other one. They stock loads of their 2-ply. So, beautiful shop, loads of books. I actually really wanted to purchase one of the Kate Davies books, but I'd been in there for maybe like 45 minutes, and yeah, we were shopping as a little trio, and my future mother-in-law does not knit currently. She's interested in learning, but she'd kind of taken herself off to get a coffee, and I didn't want to leave everyone waiting, and I had spent plenty. But I really wanted to get one of the books, so maybe that's for next time. But I did come away with all of this. Oh, it was a splurge, guys. It was a splurge. It was a treat. I used some money I'd got for my birthday a month or two ago, and just, yeah, I've been knitting a huge amount from stash. Lots of the yarn that I've purchased this year, I've already knit up into things. I've been very good. Things have not been languishing. Most of my stash has either been bought this year, or like there's a few bits that have been bought this year, but actually most of it is very, very long-term stash, and it's stuff that I bought maybe when I didn't know as much about knitting, but I will still use it. It's just harder for me to find it's not as instant to find a purpose for it. Or the other big portion of my stash is just actually leftovers from other projects, so I'll cover what I'm doing with all those scraps maybe in another episode. I think as we get near to Christmas, there'll be loads I can do with that then, but for now, we're going to focus on new acquisitions. So, I bought 3 balls of Isager Highland wool in the colour Rhubarb. It's gorgeous. I have used Isager's Highland wool several times before. I really, really like it as a base. But actually, I've either ended up gifting the items or never finishing them, or the cat has attacked them. Any number of the above. So I actually haven't got like a finished item that I wear that is made out of this yarn. So I don't really know if this colour is good for my skin tone or not, but hey, I really wanted to combine it with a kind of dark cranberry mohair. For those of you who've been following along for a while, you'll remember I made a little cowl that was in like a really dark cranberry red, and then that was striped with a coral colour held with a darker mohair. Oh, I love it. So I kind of wanted to do that, but for a jumper, but the mohairs would have just tipped my purchases beyond reasonable in terms of price. So maybe that'll be a future investment to go along with this, but I am thinking maybe the Gallant, another version of the Gallant sweater mohair edition by Kadri. If I held this with a mohair, that could be perfect. So 3 balls of this. This is going to become quite the stack behind me, I'm just warning you. The next thing I got, and this meant my volume looks huge, but actually it was more reasonable in price than you might think, purely because this yarn was on sale. This yarn is Sandnes Garn Perfect. This is a superwash yarn. It's 80% wool, 20% nylon. 50 grams is about 100 meters. They recommend 3.5mm needles, but I always find this with Sandnes Garn. They always They always recommend a smaller needle size than I would naturally go to for the size of the wool. But anyway, so I've got 4 balls, I think, in the colourway 2650. There we go, that's 4 in that colourway. And then I bought one of a contrasting colour because I thought maybe I could make a slip over. I don't think this will extend to a sweater, but I thought maybe it could be a slip over and I could do either like a contrast stripe or some stripes or some colour work. I don't know yet, but I wanted a contrast colour and I have purchased 2564. That sounds the same, that's different. 2564. It's like a kind of mustardy, browny colour. Perfect. So that was my next purchase from there, and these were on sale at I think £2.60 each per ball, so I thought that was very, very reasonable. I purchased, so you already have seen this when I was talking about my whip, but I purchased Peer Gynt in the colourway 1035, their tweed base. I purchased 4 balls of this, and I think this was this about £5 a ball, something like that. Just trying to give you prices as a bit of a comparison, because I know Sandnes Garn can be a bit tricky to get hold of sometimes here in the UK, so thought that would be helpful. The next thing I tried, so apart from the Highland wool, both the Sandnes Garn bases are brand new to me. I've never knit with them before. Something else new to me is the Isager sock. This is a really interesting blend because it's got alpaca in it, so it's 40% alpaca, 40% merino and 20% recycled nylon, and you get just under 200 meters per 50 grams. So I bought 2 of those in the colour 56, just beautiful green. You can see I'm on a green kit, guys. So I don't know if these will make socks or if they will make a cowl / scarf. Don't know, but this just felt really beautiful. So very excited to try that. And then the kind of final bit of woolly purchase was a load of the Jamieson & Smith. This comes in 25 gram little tiny balls. And I bought 2 of the colour Eesit, E-E-S-I-T, Eesit. So 2 of those, about 100 meters each, and I thought those could provide, there's a couple of different things I could do with these. I could either make a cowl where these are the base colour, or a hat where these are the base colour, and then I've got a load of contrast colours, or I could use all of them as contrast colours, either in the sweater that I'm making that's very scrappy, or I could make a new scrappy sweater and I just need to buy a kind of background base colour, or I could do an all over colourwork slip over and that the yarn might stretch to that. But I bought a ball of crimson, which is like a kind of dark hot pinky red colour. I bought a ball of fuchsia, which is a lighter hot pinky red colour, but I thought that worked quite well together. Let's see what else I can pick up to show you all at once. I bought a ball of stonewash, which is like a teal, and again I thought that combined quite well. I bought a ball of willow. So you've got light blue, dark blue, 2 shades of hot pinky red, some stony wash colour. This was a really beautiful complex colour. You can't quite pick it up on camera, but it's got blues and yellows and greens and purples and pinks and reds and oranges, but overall it comes across like a rust colour, and it's called Paprika. Eek. And then the final colour I got was the colour Fern, and it's a beautiful deep green with different flecks in it. So there you go. I think these don't all look that good together. I think if I take out these 2, which could make their own very beautiful item, I think those could be a really pretty cowl. Try and stack all of these over here without them toppling everywhere. Oops, failed already because one's on the floor. Okay. And then the very final bits I picked up, well, I picked up a row counter, this beautiful row counter. I don't know if you will be able to see it, there we go. And it's just got a really nice little thing that you turn to count your rows, and you can clip it. It's got a little like a lobster clip to clip onto your knitting. I'm doing loads of stuff at the moment where I'm kind of having to count rows, but when I'm on the go, having post-it notes with little tallies, it's not quite working for me. So having something I can clip onto my knitting is perfect. These are from Twill and Print Fibre Studio, and they're just beautiful. If, in fact, giveaways, 1,000 subscriber giveaways, I may be going back to the Oxford yarn store to pick up prizes for that, and I will definitely have a look at row counters for part of that prize. And then the final thing I got was this gorgeous little stitch marker, or like row counter, and this is handmade, a glass kind of bead made by someone who's linked to the yarn shop, and this was very kindly gifted to me as part of my purchases this weekend, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So I think really stunning as something to hang on to your knitting, but also my future mother-in-law picked up a couple and she is using them as toggles to go on her like zippers, as a really pretty alternative to a zipper tag. So I thought that was lovely. So please do check out the Oxford yarn store if you are local, or maybe if you're not, they do ship, so that's great, and you can find them at the Oxford yarn store on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter, or on their website, which is just oxfordyarn.com. And yeah, none of this is sponsored, but just really enjoyed that experience, and I think they are a yarn shop that's really passionate both about knitting and about the products they stock, and it was really lovely to speak to Lizzie in the shop, who could give so much background about all the different businesses, yarn businesses they stock. Just background as to how they were set up, the motivations behind different yarn bases, their kind of each company's ethos around it. We had a good discussion about Kate Davies. It was just, yeah, very knowledgeable, very just passionate about what they do. And I know it sounds really obvious, but it's really nice to have staff working in the shop who are as passionate about knitting as the people coming into the shop. So that was really lovely. So that kind of wraps up everything for this week. It's been, yeah, busy couple of weeks, lots of progress on knitting. I'm really excited to get some new projects on the needles, really excited to cast on some more of this new yarn. I will be working this weekend on my Shift Cowl, but I'm really beginning to feel that transition into the autumn winter. It'd be so classic that like midway through the autumn winter I want to knit some more summer vests, but actually that'd be no bad thing, because I think I need to get better at knitting things ahead of each season. I've also been doing some frogging of projects where I just knew I wouldn't finish them, or I couldn't alter them to be what I wanted. So I've now got a load of Rerum Natura Ulysses, which is the DK weight tweedy yarn. I've got a load of that in a kind of sage colourway that I've now kind of freed up from a project. So I'm excited to see what I do with that. Anyway, I'm going to stop blabbering. I'm going to leave you guys to your weekend, but thank you so much for joining me, and I'll speak to you very soon. Stay safe, happy knitting. Bye!